Well, the time's just gone 5:45 a.m. here in Thurso on the north coast of Scotland. Thanks for clicking on to Bogan's Tropical Outlook. I think this is actually, is the first tropical outlook of the season because the tropics up until now have been very, very quiet. But in recent weeks, we have seen the tropics become much more active indeed. And, it's quite interesting actually that we've now got Major Hurricane Fiona. As you can see here, a very, very impressive looking system on infrared imagery. It is the first major hurricane of the 2022 season, and it is currently packing sustained winds of approximately 125 miles per hour, gusts higher than that to the north of the Leeward Islands here. Looks as if it's going to head in a north to northeasterly direction over the next couple of days and have a very close encounter with the island of Bermuda. You can see here a very impressive tweet here showing the lightning being detected um, in and around Hurricane Fiona within the eye wall itself. You can see a ring of very active thunderstorms with the hot towers that surround the eye itself. That is, of course, the most potent area of a system, a hurricane within the eye wall itself. You've got basically a continuous ring of convective thunderstorms that pack the strongest winds. So it's looking very, very impressive indeed. Just 24 hours ago, there wasn't really much of an eye with Hurricane Fiona, but it has just it's departed Hispaniola and the high mountain ranges of that island, and now over very, very warm waters and the atmosphere being very conducive indeed. It's allowing Fiona to strengthen, and it looks as if it's going to continue to strengthen in the next few days. Now, the current position, as you can see here, is to the north of Hispaniola, and this little chain of islands here. I'm actually not quite sure off the top of my head the name of these islands, but certainly they will be getting hammered at this very moment in time. So our thoughts, of course, with anybody living in this general vicinity. Like I say, Bermuda looks as if it's going to be under the influence of Hurricane Fiona by the time we reach what that would be late Thursday into early Friday, East Coast time for the United States. But certainly, the problem that you've got here is that Bermuda is situated to the east of the system. That therefore would indicate that the worst of the conditions would actually affect the island itself if the eye wall stays fairly close to the islands itself. The eye wall itself could actually brush Bermuda and have very significant impact. Also looks as if it could maintain major status, so category 3 or higher, during the time that it's hitting Bermuda. So certainly all eyes on this system. And then as it tracks north, it will go unusually far north at category 3 status because we have got exceptionally warm waters way up to the north here. And if I can try and get the right chart, it would help. But you can see here, I've alluded to, of course, in recent times, the incredibly warm waters to the south of Greenland, to the east of Newfoundland here. And what's going to happen is we've also got very warm waters to the south of Nova Scotia. It looks as if eventually it may brush Nova Scotia and or Newfoundland. Now, with very, very warm waters compared to normal in this general region, we may see Fiona maintain fully hurricane status right up until a Canadian landfall, which is not something that you see all the time. Generally, waters are very cold in this region of the world, but because we're seeing exceptionally warm waters compared to normal, the likelihood is that Fiona will maintain fully tropical characteristics with a warm core centre and will be potentially stronger than it normally would be because of these unusually warm waters. What will also be interesting to see is the level of cooling that we see in the wake of Fiona's passage. So, in other words, the system crossing these waters, these systems pull cold air or cold water, should I say, up from deep below the surface to the surface, and we should see in the wake of Fiona cooling of the skin temperature of the ocean here. So what is going to be interesting is, can we start to see the removal of some of this heat core to the south of Greenland here in the next week or so as Hurricane Fiona tracks north, and that could have some sort of an impact as we go later down the road here. And that's another topic for another time. But the Hurricane Fiona has got a lot of fuel in its way. We have got a trough exiting the east coast of North America, and what that will do is it will keep Fiona off the east coast of the United States. But what will happen is it will keep it in line with Bermuda and possibly Nova Scotia and Newfoundland. As we play through the loop here is Hurricane Fiona, expected to become a Category 4 hurricane, may even approach Category 5 status. Now, there is a couple of outlying models that indicate that the system could ramp up to beyond 150 miles an hour. And of course, if it reaches 156 mile per hour sustained winds, it is officially a Category 5 hurricane. 155 mile per hour would be a Category 4, but when you're only talking a couple of mile per hour difference at that extremity, it doesn't really matter. It's pretty much irrelevant in a sense. But what is happening is we've got Fiona lifting north, we've got a trough coming down over the northeastern half of the United States. It, in a sense, is going to keep the system from coming westwards, and of course, tracking across very exceptional warm waters. That means that that system could become a big problem, Bermuda and East Coast Canada, as we go forward. But if you notice here, we've got more of a trough, developing over the eastern half of the United States in the wake of Fiona. But notice at the very, very end of this loop, we've got a system that comes into the Gulf of Mexico and takes a run at the Florida Panhandle, in the time frame of Friday, the 30th of September, long way out. But the emphasis being on the tropics becoming a lot more active than they have been, of course. Now, if you look at the Madden-Julian oscillation, it is actually somewhat favourable at the moment. It's got three areas of enhanced rising air or upward motion. Fiona being in this general vicinity here is going to head north. Got a large area of sinking, as you can see, over North America. That is another reason why we're not going to see Fiona making an approach on the east coast of the United States. But at this very moment in time, the central portion of the Atlantic Basin is favourable for tropical activity. And as we go through the next several days, you notice here that we enhance the area of sinking over North America, and eventually that then spreads out over the North Atlantic. So the question mark is, how active will the tropics be as we leave the month of September and begin the month of October? Certainly, if the GFS is correct, it looks as if we may start to see a suppression in tropical activity over the Atlantic as we go forward. But it will also be interesting to see whether this can continue to keep the North Atlantic oscillation in a negative phase, because as you can see here, the Arctic oscillation at the moment is pretty much on neutral, but it is expected to drop back into negative territory, as you can see here. And I believe that that will be the case because we're going to see Fiona lifting northwards. It's going to drive a lot of warmth, a build-up of pressure over Greenland, and then in turn it's going to force colder air southwards over the UK, early next week actually. So we're going to keep an eye on that because could have quite a chilly end of the month of September for the British Isles, as well as unsettled. So watch this space. and looking at the North Atlantic Oscillation as well, very similar to the Arctic Oscillation. It's generally neutral at the moment, and then it's expected to trend slightly negative as we go through the upcoming weekend and then the next week. And to me, that's a direct response to the behavior of tropical systems lifting north and interacting with the jet stream and having all sorts of impacts on our weather here in Western Europe. So, plenty of warm fuel to speak about, and Fiona is certainly going to be a troublemaker for both Bermuda and possibly the eastern fringes of Canada. In another video, I will talk more about the potential for our weather and the downstream effects of Fiona on the UK as we go through the early portion of next week. So stay tuned for that. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, and if you haven't already done so, hit that subscribe button. Have a great rest of your day. Bye for now.